I want to talk about Slammiversary because I'm interested in your insight because I know that you have some strong feelings as it relates to the main event, but the last 2 weeks we haven't really seen those Slammiversary teaser commercials where they're showing all of the New Japan talent and the WWE talent that had recently been released and things like that. Maybe they're re-editing some stuff because some folks already went back to WWE and things like that. So what it seems like there's been a little bit of some steam has been let out of the buzz train on the Slammiversary show. What are your thoughts going into Slammiversary, and what are your thoughts on the main event?
Well, like, I mean, no secret of the fact that I am not a big fan of um, Sami Callihan, and so my initial feelings is that wasn't going to order this pay-per-view, and I'm still kind of leaning that way. Um, but it's kind of hard to miss a Kenny Omega title defense. He's so good; he always delivers, and so it may end up being the lure of whatever these surprises that they're promising, and hopefully I don't get let down, but I do feel like they'll bring in a few people. I guess they're promising at least two surprises, right? That's what I think you
Right.
said last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and you know what, Callahan, he's been good in this lead up. I again, I'm not a fan, but he's playing the role right, and Kenny Omega is playing it right. Like he's playing like he's afraid of this guy. Not that he's afraid he's going to get beat, but that he's afraid like maybe Sammy's going to go off script, or
Mm-hmm.
not, you know what I mean? Like just like he'll actually hurt him as opposed to like try to beat him is kind of the vibe that you give off. So he doesn't want to get in the ring with this guy. And I think that's great. So I again, I'm probably gonna end up not doing it just because it's $50. But if I do, it's gonna be because they sold me, and they've
Right.
got 2 more weeks left. So, and I said the same thing about the barbed wire death match, and I ended up getting that, and I enjoyed it for the most part. So,
Yeah, so Sammy Callahan, he on television, he's not really a likable guy. There's not really any reason to root for him. Um, there's no real reason to root for Sammy Callahan. However, he does know how to talk people into being interested in his matches, and I think that is an admirable quality. Kenny Omega has done his part pretty well by being afraid of him and things like that, and trying to put over Sammy as this psychopath. But I think Don Callis has really done an excellent job in this entire buildup and this entire lead up. So I hope that they continue to build it. I hope that they continue to build up Sammy Callahan. I do feel like the surprises that once Samoa Joe went back to NXT, that a little bit of steam was let out of that because he was obviously the biggest fish out of those April releases. Next on the list would be Mickey James, but she's already been appearing on NWA, so the novelty. I don't think it's that big of a deal because she's already on NWA. She's already appeared on somebody else's television. That's not to say anything negative towards her. I think that she'd be a great get for Impact, and I think that is entirely possible. So, if you lost Samoa Joe, Mickey James is already appearing elsewhere. So then when you go down that list, you got Chelsea Green, you got the Iconics, and you got Wesley Blake, and you got guys like that. And I just don't think that those people are, too crazy of a big deal. When it comes to the WWE releases, but now they're talking about bringing in somebody that's under contract somewhere else, and so you're
yeah.
looking at New Japan and AEW there, and I think that there's some top stars over there that I really do think would be a big deal for this pay-per-view. I do think though that if they're going to bring somebody in that's under contract somewhere else with per an agreement with a company, I don't think that they should wait to make it a surprise. I think that
Yeah, I agree.
they
Yeah.
should start advertising that now. If because last week my prediction was Christian, and I'm still holding to that. Because I do think they're going to try to do that Christian and Omega match in AEW relatively soon. There was an online rumor. I don't really put too much stock into it that it was going to be the debut of Rampage, and it very well could be. And I
Hmm.
think that would be a good spot for it to kick off that show with a huge main event. Um, but so if they are going to do that, I think bringing Cage into Impact for an appearance, and he's one of the He was a very big deal in TNA back in from 2005 to I think he left in 08, 09, something like that. So he was a
Yeah.
big deal there for a while. So whenever TNA was very, very popular and was the number two promotion in the world. So I think that'd be cool. But if you're going to bring him in, I think it would be wise to promote him in the same thing if it's going to be Jay White or Okada or somebody like that from New Japan.
Yeah, I think my pick that I said to you, I think Chelsea Green is almost a given.
Hmm.
That she's going to end up there, just because Matt Cardona, Mid Cardona is
Yeah,
is there,
yeah.
and they're a couple, right? So I mean, at this point, like the names you mentioned, I mean, they could all be headed there at some point, and I think that'd be good pickups for Impact. But they're definitely not needle movers. They're definitely people that you could do something with. I mean, I think they've already, like, there's one name that we'll talk about tonight that was on the show that I think it's got a big future,
Hmm.
and and it may surprise you. So I'll save that
Yeah,
till when we get to it, and maybe you know who I'm talking about. But
absolutely.
yeah, but the I do think, like I said, Juice Robinson would be a possibility, or Jay
Hmm.
White. But and if it is a name like that, especially Jay White, like if it's Jay White, you got to announce that ahead of time. You don't necessarily have to do it today or tomorrow, but definitely within a week of the show, because you want that buzz. And if it is an agreement with a company, like there's no reason not to, unless part of the deal is they're not allowed to announce it because yeah, you can use the guy, but we don't really want you to get any business off of it.
Right.
Which I mean,
Which would be the
it's
point.
well, the point is you get the guy and
Yeah.
you get the footage, and so I mean it's better than not getting him, right? And you promise a surprise, you sell the surprise, you deliver a surprise. So, and that tells people that next time there will be a surprise. Last year it was what, Eric Young and Rhino and Heath, I
No,
think
so
were the
last year there actually was a lot more surprises than I think Impact is getting credit for. It
okay.
was it was EC3, Eric Young,
Oh right. Yeah.
Heath. Rhino had been in the company for a year up to that point.
Okay.
The
Okay.
Motor City Machine Guns came back. They
Right.
had they kicked the show off. So I think, and then Rich Swann came back from injury. So they actually had a ton of surprises. But as far as the former WWE surprises, it was EC3, Eric Young, and Heath that debuted on that show. That were like the three WWE guys. But then they gave you a lot more than anybody had even bargained
Right.
for, because that was,
That's right.
their roster had gotten super depleted because AEW had picked off a few more talents, and they lost Tessa Blanchard and Michael Elgin and Joey Ryan all at the same time. And it was literally within a couple of weeks of Slammiversary, after they had already filmed all of the footage leading into Slammiversary. So they had to edit out a bunch of stuff especially with Elgin and Joey Ryan in it. They filmed a ton of stuff. They were going to be big players in Slammiversary last year. So
Those three
um,
names that you mentioned are like the most toxic people in the wrestling industry.
yeah, yeah. And they were all with Impact, and I'm not blame. Maybe you can blame them for hiring Elgin. I personally like, I got no issues there with Elgin,
Yeah.
but he had just kind of a reputation of kind of being a perv anyway.
Yeah.
But he's not a guy that I think that needs to be canceled forever. And
No.
Tessa, I think she's young enough. There's such a thing as grace that they can be
Yeah.
afforded to people, especially if they make an effort to change themselves. So I hope that those two people get it together and
I
are
want to see
welcome
her
back into
back
pro.
for sure
Yeah, I
at
hope
some
they
point.
come back into pro wrestling. Joey Ryan, I'm done with that guy. I got
Hmm.
no interest. I
Yeah.
I didn't like him even before he got canceled, so that's that's fine. So he could just stay away for all I care. But
Yeah.
Elgin and Blanchard, hopefully, maybe not an Impact. I think they kind of got burned, but somebody
Yeah.
somewhere should give them a shot. So speaking of giving folks a shot, WWE seems to be, this is what they're doing a lot lately. At least I want to say at least once a month since April, they're just releasing people. They're releasing people at an alarming rate. It's kind of crazy. So, and maybe you could fill in some of the gaps for me because my memory is terrible. They're doing it so often that I can't remember who got released on which date. So it was this past Friday. Tony Nese, Breezango, which would be Fandango, and Tyler Breeze. You had the Bollywood boys or the Singh brothers. You had Everrise, two good Canadian boys right before Canada Day. And Killian Dane, all got released. Was there more than that? I can't remember anybody else off the top of my head.
I'm trying to recall. I mean, those were definitely the big ones. I'm just trying to find the post of the people that were leaving. Um, but yeah, I mean, those were the big ones for sure.
Yeah,
And again, like we don't know. I think these guys might be 30 day no compete because they're pretty. They might have been all on NXT contracts except maybe. Did you mention Brizango?
I did.
They were
They
okay.
were
Yeah, so
they were NXT guys, but they had been to the main roster, so I don't know
yeah,
how that works.
so they
And
could have.
then
And I think Killian had a cup of coffee on the main roster too. So
I
he
think
may.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think he did. And then I know that Nice and the Singh brothers were 205 live. So I don't know
right.
what their deal is. So,
Well,
they
that's part of NXT now.
oh,
So,
it is. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's not considered main roster. So yeah, so they would all like, I mean, most of them would be available in 30 days. So that's the the timing is such that they definitely can't make Slammiversary, but they could probably come in right after Slammiversary. I
Mhm.
like some of those names. Anthony Green is one that
Oh,
I mean I've been pushing this. He's got a ready-made spot on Impact on as Johnny Swinger's rat bastard. I mean it's perfect. I mean he young enough he could be his kid. They look alike. I mean they got to do that. I mean and that would be a perfect place for him to get his career going again, I think.
so is that the guy?
The
So what was his WWE name? Was it August Gray? Was that him?
uh August Gray. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was yeah, the retrosexual on the indies was
I
his
did,
gimmick.
dude, that's a great suggestion. I didn't even think about that. I'm honestly not familiar with Anthony Green, but I saw his picture and I'm just I could visualize it
Yeah.
in my head right now of him being in Swingers Palace next to Dino
Yeah.
Bravo and Johnny
Did you
Swinger.
watch Dynamite last night?
I did. Yeah.
So Matt Jackson looked exactly like Anthony Green.
He did.
I thought they signed him.
That's
You know,
funny.
I'm joking obviously, but he looked like it's the same mustache, the same hair. And you know, and I think the Bollywood Boys would be a great pickup for Impact.
Hmm.
They're so entertaining and they're Canadian and they seem to like their Canadian talent on that in that company. And you know, like Killian Dane would be great. Although I think he would probably be better served by maybe going to like a New Japan or even maybe getting a tryout in AEW because I think he'd stand out there.
Hmm.
But you know, a lot of the younger guys, like I think that if they want to keep going, Impact's a great place to kind of resurrect your career and get a name for yourself. And you can work indies and you can work with New Japan and you can work with ROH. Now it seems almost like AEW is a possibility, like the dark taping. So I really like the niche that Impact is kind of carving out for itself. And now that they're going to have fans again, you know, that maybe they'll be able to tour a little bit and then you can kind of you know, get around the country and see different people rather than just being stuck in that studio in Nashville.
Yeah. So the three guys that I thought would have been a great fit, the Bollywood boys, they do have a little bit of history there with the Jarrett era GWF, and then I think they were in Rinka King too, and that was kind
Oh,
of the promotion out of India that I think Impact was promoting. I don't know who was heading the whole thing, but I knew Impact was affiliated with it. So there's a little bit of a connection. Of course, they're Canadian. I'm pretty sure they know Scott Demore quite well. So I think that they would fit in great in Impact, and Impact still has their TV deal in India, which is probably one of the more lucrative deals that they have. So they should make every effort to bring those guys in. And then you brought him up, but Killian Dane would be a great fit because he does have the history with Eric Young Insanity, and you got Alexander Wolf, who was released I think last month, who is going to be coming up available soon. So if you can do I don't want to see Eric Young, Wolf, and Killian Dane reform Sanity, but I think it would be kind of cool to have those two guys in there maybe as opponents for Violet by Design. I think that would be
yeah,
a great
yeah,
dynamic. And so, I was talking to a dude the other day, and I was like, man, could you imagine if Impact if they were to bring in Killian Dane and Alexander Wolf? You got Steve Macklin. You could bring in Wesley Blake, right? And then if you AOP also got fired. They're out there. They're saying they want to come back. If you brought those teams in, that's a hell of a tag team division, and that's also probably my favorite era of NXT on Impact. So I,
yeah,
not that everybody's like they don't want AEW and Impact to rely heavily on former WWE talent. But when you're, and I get that maybe for AEW, the AEW has a lot more resources where they could sign up a ton of no name people and just build them up themselves over time. But when you're Impact, you gotta, if you got a guy that's affordable and has a name, you need to bring him in. Who cares if he used to work in
Yeah,
WWE? Bring him in, get some
that's a
buzz, and
plus.
yeah, it's a plus, and those guys can have good matches. So I
Murphy
think,
would be, yeah, like
oh
he's
gosh,
going to be available. Yeah.
yeah,
He
I
and you know what? That would be a guy that if they brought him in as a surprise, like maybe somebody gets removed from that six-way X match and then Murphy is the surprise replacement. Like that'd be great. It
mhm.
would pop the crowd. It would get the people watching excited. That's a guy that everybody loves. They know, he's a great worker. He got screwed over by WWE, and he could revive his career.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to see Buddy Murphy. I do think that he's probably a guy that AEW would look at. But Impact, for all their faults, and it seems like they have not really done a great job of locking in big name talent, and it's not for a lack of trying. I know there was a report a couple of months ago that Impact actually matched AEW's offer for Andrade, but
Wow.
financially they did. They couldn't match the number of dates, but they matched the per date offer. But they
Mm,
couldn't match the exact number of dates that he was looking for, and then also you can't match the exposure because
no.
AEW is just quite a few levels above being on TNT. So they are looks like they're willing to spend. So they should bring in some of these guys, and I really think they could change the face of their company and change their trajectory for years to come if they're able to bring some of these cats in.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of our stuff, hit that subscribe button. We're adding more video podcasts to our rotation. If you want to hear more content from Fight Game Media, check out the Fight Game Media Network on Patreon. We have podcasts at least 5 days a week and often more, depending on which tier you choose. With Tier 1, you'll get pro wrestling podcasts for $2.99 a month. If you're an MMA or boxing fan, or just want even more pro wrestling audio content, check out our $7.99 a month tier. In that tier, you may even hear AEW rockstar Jon Moxley join us now and again. Also, check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Fight Game Media.